up and make the move and do it. And boy, I'm surprised. I'm surprised. Here we go. I got Big Sills. Let's get his instant reaction. The Philadelphia Eagles select Jihaad Campbell, joined now by the greatness of Dan Sileo. Big Sills, did you think we'd be talking about a linebacker in the first round from Alabama coming to the Philadelphia Eagles tonight?
Funny, man. That's one of the guys that we had talked about earlier, that why wouldn't Vic Fangio, who's the linebacker guru, get a guy who is a Swiss Army knife, and you could put him in multiple positions. You can play him inside. You can play him on the edge. He's an exceptional football player. We said it today also that he was one of the 5 best players in this draft if you look at just skilled players. Yep. I mean, this is probably the last of the Nick Saban great defensive football players at Alabama. I mean, I think the kid has got a lot of great abilities, and you know what he reminds me of? Zach Bond. He can do everything. Sideline to sideline, in coverage. He can blitz. I'm telling you, Howie Roseman has changed paying the running back. He's paid going and doing things in the safety position. He's also now changed that a linebacker for the first time since Jerry Robinson is drafted in the first round. That was in the late 70s. Absolutely awesome. I love the pick.
Sills, do you think they're going to use him as a linebacker? He is a guy that's versatile, could potentially move out on the edge and play out there. But, you know, Sills, my big concern with this pick, and I'm a Bama guy, I love this player, but he does have that lingering shoulder issue. Some have said he might not even be ready for camp. So I don't know what to make of that. I'm sure, you know, obviously if the Eagles take him, it checked out for him. But your thoughts on that and then how they might use him on this team?
You know, again, I think you're going to have to get him in camp the same way that they got Zach Bond, because they didn't really know what they had until they put him in a position. Let's be candid here about when you look at Micah Parsons. They didn't even know what they had with Micah Parsons until they had injuries on the perimeter. Then they put his hand down in the dirt and they realized he could rush the passer. You know what I think they're going to do, Zander? They're going to figure out whether or not his skill set is going to be kind of like Cooper DeJean. They're going to keep him in the slot. They're not going to try to move him out on the corner. And they're going to find out, do you think he's better on the edge? They may play him at end. I mean, I don't know how they're going to manipulate the kid, but to me, I think what Vic is going to do, here's another example, Zander, of a guy with versatility. Cooper DeJean, versatility. Q, versatility. Bond, versatility. Carter, you could play him in a 3-2-1. I mean, this is what this guy's looking for. Again, I can't believe that is probably the best pick on the board for what a team needs. Now you have this. Now you have to decide, what does that mean for Dean? How does that look at the future of Nakobe Dean? You didn't draft.
Yeah.
You didn't draft the first round draft choice and put him next to a $17 million guy.
Right.
If you were comfortable thinking that Nakobe Dean was part of your future.
I mean, the only thing I could think for Nakobe that would look good for him would be is if they moved him to the edge exclusively, kind of like Dallas did with Micah, you know? Now, I don't think that's likely. Sills, he's 6'3", 230. That's a little undersized to be playing edge every day.
How about this, what you have in the middle? Yeah, you're not putting him out there. How about this in what you have? So now you have Bond, and you have as your 2 inside linebackers, Campbell. By the way, they did not draft him in the first round to be a backup. That guy's going to start for you. Okay, you got Davis and Carter, and you've got Ajomo in there. So your front 5 guys are a draft pick of a runner-up to the Defensive Player of the Year, Jalen Carter, a first-round pick in Davis, and you've got Moro Ajomo out there. Probably they're going to address that in the second round. Defensive end, I would imagine they're going to address that. Again, man, to me, what I see, because you're asking the questions exactly right. What are they going to do with them? I think that's a positive. That's not a negative. What are they going to do with them? I'd like to be able to say that about every guy I drafted. He's so good, I could put him here. He's so good, I can put him there.
Exactly.
I mean, I think, again, like you guys talk in the morning, I think that's a rich man's problem.
Sills, you know what's interesting about this, dude? You know, we talked about the top 30 visits a ton. Ezra Raku still on the board. Mike Green still on the board. Nick Squirton still on the board. They opt to go with the linebacker over those edge rushers who were guys that they brought into the building. I mean, I kept seeing his name drop, and I'm like, is it going to be Campbell? Is it going to be Campbell? Is it going to be Campbell? And with Ezeraku there, I thought it would be Ezeraku. I'm blown away. They went with the linebacker. What's your thoughts on that?
Again, we kind of talked about him being one of the guys. Why wouldn't you take that? I just don't see. And Zander, you were not wrong because the Eagles haven't done it in 45 years. Okay. I mean, so for me, again, blown away, shocked. Yes. I think once Malachi went to Baltimore, which we predicted, I thought that was probably the guys. Look, Nolan and Malachi were probably the guys that they were identifying, and then they went with get this, they went with Vic's forte. That's a Vic. Anybody in their right mind who doesn't think that was a Vic Fangio pick is nuts, especially when the guy is a guru at the linebacker position.
Yeah, it's a great pick for that reason with Vic Fangio. I know he's smiling right now, Sills, Vic Fangio.
How about this? I think this was do you think this was this, Zander? I know we lost CJ and I know we lost the other guys. Who do you want? I'll take the linebacker. Okay, here you go.
Yeah, and you heard him also say to Vic, hey, if you can only keep Bond or Milton or Sweat, take your pick. I think they're kind of throwing him a bone. We're gutting your number one defense, take a bone here. So, hey, listen, I think this is a big impact, Sills. I mean, you've talked about the guys they've lost. Yeah. Okay, now how much does this mean for adding? This is the first big addition.
Well, this to me is a prime example of what I've been talking about. Edge rusher was never a priority for them heading into this draft. I mean, there's numerous guys. Mike Green is still out there, and they thinking they're going to get him in the second round or potentially now even in the third round.
Yeah.
One thing happened in this draft that people were hoping, that multitude of quarterbacks went. Guess what? They didn't. And when they didn't, that started telling you a little more about how they saw this draft. They saw this draft the same way I did. I think from 10 down, Zander, I think that first round is filled with a bunch of second-round picks and that you've wedged them in there into the second round or into the first round, and that's how I see it. They think, and I said, there's no doubt the value of this draft is 10 down and to the third round. This is where you're going to get multiple guys and where you're going to be able to fill multiple holes. I wouldn't be shocked if they go end and edge and then a safety somewhere in there, or maybe even a corner that they'll look at because they're still trying to figure out how to replace Slay.
Now, what's interesting, so is they jumped from 32 to 31 for this pick, and they did it with the Chiefs. Now, I don't know if the Chiefs were playing gamesmanship on this because the Chiefs just drafted that tackle from what's that guy's name? The tackle. No, not him. No, Josh Simmons, the left tackle from Ohio State.
Okay.
So the Eagles jump from 32 to 31. I guess the only reason they would do that would another team maybe have moved to 31? Maybe the Chiefs were talking to another team. It might not have been the Chiefs that were trying to take Jihaad Campbell, because I was thinking the Chiefs are probably always taking the offensive tackle, and they knew the Eagles weren't taking them.
May I ask what the Eagles gave up to move up?
164, that's it. So one of those 4 fifth-rounders they have.
Okay, they probably went Kansas City to the highest bidder. There must have been multiple teams bidding picks there, and the Eagles probably went up with a 4th pick. Maybe other teams.
And remember, the Eagles have 32. So another team would have had to give them 33 or 34, and they wouldn't have been able to make their pick. Right.
So again, they went to the Eagles offered them the most to move up, and it was a 4th rounder for them to move up. Remember in the value chart here, that pick is only 10 points more. So that's why it was, again, I still think a 4th round pick to move up one spot. I think that's pretty rich, okay, to move up one spot. So again, I think the kid's had a legendary career at Alabama. He's a great football player, and he's got great versatility. He's one of the sandbox guys that we've really liked the entire draft. I mean, I'm pretty shocked that they went linebacker. You probably could have got him because it looks like Kansas City then wasn't going to draft him, but somebody was going to get back into the first round.
It was. I think somebody was.
Yeah, somebody wanted to get back into the first round and nail him.
Yep, I think that's exactly what happened. Now, Sills, real quick, I want to get your take just kind of on the overall draft. Shedeur Sanders still available. Giants move back up, get Jackson Dart. I mean, a whole litany of things, Sills, in this draft that happened that were just kind of like, whoa, man, I did not expect that to happen. So just kind of your takeaway on what happened in round one. Travis Hunter goes to the Jaguars. They move up. How about the Browns? They fleeced the Jaguars. I thought the Raiders get Ashton Genty. Panthers took Ted McMillan, hated that pick. Colston Loveland goes before Tyler Warren. Walter Nolan goes at 16. Shamar Stewart at 17. So a lot of good storylines in this draft. What stuck out to you tonight, Big Sills, on round one here?
Let's start with the obvious storyline, and that was obviously Shedeur Sanders. Brian Dable, for him to be able to look at Jackson Dart, he looked at Jackson Dart and saw the same skill set. Remember when I say this? Who does Jackson Dart remind Brian Dable of? Josh Allen, dual threat guy, big kid, runs, power arm. That played against great competition in the Southeastern Conference. He saw more of Josh Allen in what he coached up in Buffalo, and that's why I think he passed on Shedeur Sanders. I was a little shocked that the Steelers went D tackle instead of going and getting Shedeur. You know what I think? I think the Steelers are going to grab their quarterback in the second or third round. They're going to grab either Milroe in the second,
you
Hurts got the
this,
second.
So you talked about this. Yep.
And I think that's where they're going. They're going to go in second and third and grab their Jalen Hurts in the second round. And as for Shedeur, one more time here, again, I never saw it. I haven't seen enough of that to where I'm like, that guy's a first round talent. Jay Gruden thought he was a fourth rounder. I don't think that, but again, I'm not shocked. Okay. I'm not. Everyone else is. I think it's because they made more of a story out of it. I'll say this to you about Jacksonville. So now you get the kid a year ago you got from LSU, and you put that kid now, Travis Hunter, on the other side. Hey, Trevor, if it ain't now, I don't know when it is.
It's never. Exactly.
It's never. If you don't do this, it is never now. So I thought that for them to move up, they gave a ton up to get him, and I get it. But, boy, I'll tell you what, you have now put a ton of pressure on Trevor Lawrence and that entire organization. The Raiders going and getting Ashton Genty, how does that surprise anybody? What was the number one feature when Pete Carroll was up in Seattle? It was Marshawn Lynch.
Right.
They played defense, ran the ball, and they were effective on third down. So that really didn't shock me. The limited wide receivers that went in this draft, I think there were only 3 that ended up going in this draft. The kid from Ohio State went higher than I thought. I always liked that kid, though.
Yeah, Abuka. He was my favorite. I liked him more than Ted.
I had a problem with, because if you ever watch his game film, he's not very good at getting separation.
No, he doesn't at all. He relies on his big body, big catch radius.
Yeah, but they're trying to compare him to a bigger version of a Cooper Kupp, and I just don't really see that. So, again, I thought the draft kind of went the way I thought it was going to go. The quarterbacks or the not quarterbacks not going higher than what people thought, and the volume of them not going, I think has really made this draft what it was. It was a mediocre draft, and I wasn't really surprised by it. I mean, a lot of teams went out, grabbed what they needed. Obviously, the Steelers went out. What did they do? They went out there looking at Cam Hayward's replacement. That's what they were doing. And as I said, they're going to get their guy in the second round. I like the Genty to Raiders. If you watched one thing for sure, man, you saw what the Packers did. You saw what the Lions did. You saw what the Ravens did. And you saw what the Eagles did, obviously, running the football. And so that's what they did. By the way, I have to say this one more time. Malachi Stark's going to Baltimore. I said it today as I closed my show. You put that guy next to Kyle Hamilton, those are your 2 safeties for the next 7-8 years. Hey, dude, you've got some really great football players sitting there. And one thing
they need them, man. They got to play Mahomes. They got to play Burrow. They got to play all those dudes in the AFC all year, every year. So there's no doubt about that. Good stuff there, Sills. Last couple questions for you, brother, before I let you run. We appreciate you checking in tonight. I want to ask you about tomorrow's players because, boy, there's a lot of them. But the Giants, all right? I know we talked about what they did early. They took Abdul Carter. They also trade back in late, and they take Jackson Dart, the second of 2 quarterbacks taken in this draft. You'll be more objective than our Eagle fans will be. Do you like what they did at all?
Surprisingly, they did the right things here.
Yeah.
And remember what else they did tonight? They picked up the 5th-year option on Kayvon Thibodeau.
Yeah.
So they've added that to the mix, and now they've got a 3-person pass rush on the perimeter with Burns, now with this kid that they got in with Abdul Carter, and also now with Kayvon Thibodeau. So you've got a pretty good-looking edge rusher. Why did they do that, Zander? They've got to get to Hurts.
Yep.
That's number one, plain and simple. They've got to get to Hurts. I mean, Washington, they have to get to Hurts. They have to put pressure on the quarterback. Every single team in that division has to go out and get pressure on Hurts. The Cowboys, on the other hand, a guard, Tyler Booker, they need that because of the loss of Zach Martin. I get it. They got to strengthen, but boy, I'll tell you, I mean, you could have potentially got another good football player like the kid from William and Mary, and you could have took him in the 2nd round.
Yeah.
And you could have grabbed him there and maybe fixed another need, and that's defensive tackle. They're still not surrendering on the fact that Mozzie Smith is a bust.
You know, the Cowboys thing, it's not about the player for me because I like the player. That player would have been there at 25.
Absolutely.
So why not extract more value? That's where Howie does so well, where he always maximizes the pick. The Cowboys, they just took the player because they liked him. I'm like, dude, that guy would have been there 10 picks later, 12 picks later, maybe even more than that. Some people had him mocked in the 2nd round. So interesting stuff there. Sills, last stuff for tonight, and then I'll get your final wrap again on Jihaad Campbell, the newest Philadelphia Eagle. Shadur Sanders, Will Johnson, Mike Green, Donovan Ezeraku, Travion Henderson, Keyshawn Judkins, Shavon Revel, Trey Amos, Nick Emanwari, Mason Taylor, Elijah Arroyo, Luther Burden, Jalen Milroe, Tyler Shuck. Boy, we got some players in round 2 tomorrow, Sills. What do you think the Eagles do?
Again, they're picking so low. I think Howie, this is where, as I've said, Howie's best round is the 2nd round. This most productive round in the last 6 years has been the 2nd and 3rd and 4th rounds.
Right.
I think he's going to do some really good things here in the next couple rounds here on tomorrow night and also on the weekend here, because there's still some really good football players, as you said, out there. There's no doubt about it, man. I think that when you're looking at the players, hey, does Mike Green fall to them in the 2nd round? That would be somebody that I would really take a look at. And one more thing here with Jihaad Campbell here. You're talking about a kid who's 6'2", he's 235 pounds. He runs a 4.4 40, and this guy's got a wingspan of 80. And you're talking about people that talk like this about him. And here's the Bledsoe report. Flashes fundamental tackling skills that are 2nd to none. Plays with a hustle and intensity that brings lightning to a franchise. Heads up, is always on a swivel. And if you don't know where he is a headhunter. So you got now a guy who's got the same kind of intangibles and the same kind of energy that's being brought to your defense that Cooper DeJean brought. I'll tell you what you got. You got a mad dog playing there at DT. You got a crazy guy there that plays with great energy at linebacker. Now you've got another one, and you got a nickel. Tell you what you got, dog. You got yourself some people in there. It ain't about winning championships with choir boys. You got people that want to get after folks.
Yep.
And guess what they're doing, Zander? They're continuing to build up the heart of the defense and make sure that they're stout in the middle with their linebackers. And also, I suggest that they probably go safety and also another D end and maybe a defensive tackle over these next 3 picks.
It's funny, man. All the things that we talked about preparing for this draft, linebacker was not one of the things we talked about drafting. Now you still have edge. You still need defensive tackle, corner, safety. Everything is still a need going into day 2. So I expect Howie to do a lot of shaking and baking. Sills, thanks for checking in tonight. Your final thoughts here for everybody. Jihaad Campbell, your newest Philadelphia Eagle.
I think it's another great pick. I mean, look, I'm not a real big guy on trying to sit here and like tout guys up before they get their helmet.
Yeah, right. It's we don't know. We don't really know.
But I tell you what, man, you got a guy. He's not just Zander. He's not a linebacker. He's a football player.
Yep.
Okay. You can put him on the edge. You can put him wherever you need. I think that's what Vic is looking at this guy. He's not just – there's nobody pigeonholed here. He's not a linebacker. He's a football player, and he's an interior player that you could put out on the edge. He's tall enough to put out there on the edge. I got to tell you, man, I like that pick better than the Walker pick earlier. I don't like 6-foot defensive edges.
I know. I knew you wouldn't like him. I knew you wouldn't like him.
I don't. And you know what? There's some folks that say he's 5'11". And so to me, man, I don't like short guys. You're going against Jordan Mailata and you're 5'11". I'd rather take this kid here and take my gambles and maybe have a Van Ginkel here.
Yep, I hear you. Big Sills, great stuff, brother. We're all looking forward to the National Football Show tomorrow from 2 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Should be a great one with rounds 2 and 3 tomorrow night following your show. Thank you for doing it tonight, Big Sills. We'll catch you tomorrow, brother.
You got it, brother. Don't forget Birds 365, and then we're in the afternoon. I'll catch you later, brother.
Thank you, Sills. There's Big Sills. Dan Sileo, host of the National Football Show here on JAKIB Sports, checking in to give his instant reaction to the Philadelphia Eagles drafting Jihaad Campbell a little bit later on in the show tonight. We're going to talk to John McMullen. He's at the Howie Roseman press conference tonight. So once he talks to Howie Roseman, he'll check in right here, right after, and give us his take. I'm curious to talk to John about this one because of all of the things John and I talked about, the hours of Birds 365 week in and week out, 10 plus hours per week. Jihaad Campbell was not a name that we really thought would be a guy for the Eagles. You know, we were thinking defensive line, defensive tackle, defensive edge, cornerbacks, safety. We talked about tight ends. We talked about so many different things. Linebacker, that's not something we talked about. Let me give you guys a little bit of a rundown on Jihaad Campbell here. I knew he was a good player. I just didn't really think that the Eagles would go with this draft pick. All right, so I'm going to give you a full rundown on this player so you know exactly where this guy comes from. All right, high school, 5-star recruit, top 15 prospect nationally. He transferred from Timber Creek, for my Jersey people, a Jersey school, to IMG Academy, which is one of the best schools in the country, in Florida for his senior year. So again, 5-star recruit, committed to the University of Alabama, played in 9 games in 22 his rookie or